Today we're talking about compressors. Now in a studio, a compressor is a piece of equipment that basically takes the softer parts of your sound that you're recording and brings it up a little bit, and it also takes the loudest parts of that sound and squashes it down. It compresses that signal. There's lots of different types of compressors. My favorite compressor is the optical compressor. I was introduced to the LA-2A years ago when a good friend of mine, Jeremy Horn, sent me an acoustic guitar recording. I was like, what is that makes that thing sound so amazing? And he gave me his full signal chain, and at the end of that chain was an LA-2A. Now, I personally cannot afford an actual LA-2A. They're very expensive. There are several companies, however, that make what we call a clone unit. Now, here's the catch. Many of those companies make a more inferior product that does not come close to capturing that amazing sound of the LA-2A. However, there is a company called AudioScape that makes an amazing LA-2A recreation. Now for the actual definition, an optical compressor is a compressor that uses a light element and an optical cell to alter those dynamics of the audio signal. So you're essentially using a light element to adjust the dynamics of that signal. An optical compressor is very musical, it's very transparent, very warm and pleasing to the ear. It's really hard to make an optical compressor sound bad. If you ask any of my film students at the high school when they're editing audio signal, they're trained to put actually two LA-2A plugins stacked on top of each other on each and every one of the video files. We double compress everything with that LA-2A plugin. I was fortunate enough to find one of these AudioScape units years ago, actually during COVID, and I have it in my studio, and so I was going to let you hear a little bit of this AudioScape unit, this actual piece of hardware, which is amazing. Now, one of the things that makes that AudioScape unit stand out from the other clone units that are made is the way that it's made. Each of these units is hand built in the USA, and they're using old stock tubes. So tubes that are new, but tubes that were sourced from old stocks from the 60s. The components of the LA-2A are partly what gives it its magic and what makes it sound so good. A few things this company does that some of the other companies don't do. AudioScape goes to great lengths to build these units to sound like those originals. One important addition that they did add to the unit was the high frequency control, which was added to the front plate of the unit. Originally, the control was on the back, and it was sort of set from the factory depending on what the application was. AudioScape also uses half-watt carbon resistors, just like the original in the 60s. They utilize a custom-made circuit board designed for the lowest noise specs possible. Some of those other companies making them, instead of using the half-watt, they're actually using quarter-watt, and they're making them in 2-unit spaces instead of the 3-unit rack spaces, and they're cutting down on those power supplies. And all of those things matter to the sound of the LA-2A. Some of those units sound good, some of them don't sound as good as the AudioScape unit. Now, the Opto compressor has a slow release and attack time that's built in, and that's the reason that the compressor itself sounds so smooth and natural, and one of the reasons people like it so much. It's also really hard to mess this compressor up. You get 2 knobs, basically. You also have that added high-pass filter, but really 2 knobs, makeup gain and the peak reduction. And what you want to do is, this thing is driven by the actual input signal. So there is no input gain structure. It's simply you drive the signal into the compressor, you turn up that peak reduction knob until you get about -3 to 5 dB, and then you can turn that makeup gain knob up to get the sound level back up to where it needs to be. It's an amazing compressor, sounds great on pretty much anything, but vocals is where it really shines. So today I was going to just sing a passage and let you hear the AudioScape LA-2A or Opto compressor. My actual signal chain is going to be a Loudon Audio FC357 FET mic into a BAE 1073, which is a Neve preamp, and then that 1073 is going to flow into the AudioScape Opto compressor. From the Opto compressor, it's going to print to Pro Tools. On the back side, just so you know, I'm going to let you hear with and without the reverb, but I am going to put a little bit of reverb, and I'm using the Chris Lord Alge vocal plugin as my reverb, which gives me really nice reverb, a little bit of delay, and just slight EQ, and all of that is built right into the Chris Lord Alge vocal preset. I'm not turning on the compressor in that vocal plugin because I want you to hear just the LA-2A as it sits in the mix. Okay, so here's the LA-2A completely turned down. Like a warm drink, it seeps into my soul. And then we'll turn it up. About 12 o'clock should do it. Like a warm drink, it seeps into my soul. Please just leave me right here on my own. Turning it up even more to let you hear the compression even more. Like a warm drink, it seeps into my soul. You'll notice immediately it really just sounds softer. It doesn't sound bad. We'll give it makeup gain. Like a warm drink, it seeps into my soul. Like a warm drink, it seeps into my soul. So here's a pass without reverb. Like a warm drink, it seeps into my soul. Please just leave me right here on my own. Later on, you could spend some time with me if you want to. Oh, let's see. And then here's a pass with some reverb effects. Like a warm drink, it seeps into my soul. Please just leave me right here on my own. Later on, you could spend some time with me if you want to. Oh, let's see. So there you have it. That's AudioScape's take on the Opto compressor, the LA-2A. I do use the plugins. I mentioned that earlier in the video. I use the plugins in Pro Tools. I use the plugins on Final Cut. They're great. The plugins sound fantastic. It's just fun to have the actual piece of equipment. And when I'm recording acoustic guitars, especially and vocals, I like to run my signal chain from a Neve BAE into that Opto compressor and then into the computer. And then sometimes I even compress again with a plugin on top of that. So it's a great piece of gear to have, a great piece of gear to be familiar with. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. We'll see you on the next one.